he says, beloved, he's talking to Gaius, I pray that you prosper, be in health, even as your soul prospers. Now watch this. When you see the word just as in the New King James, or you see the word even as, the writer, that's the first principle that the writer is trying to get you to focus on. That's the important part of the text. Because even though we're born again and we're saved and we have access to abundance, with that access to abundance, if our soulish man is not healthy, I don't care how saved you are, you're going to stay broke in every area of your life. And when I mean broke, again, come on, we're renewing your mind here. We're not talking about broke monetarily. You don't need, when you're sick, you're broke. When your mind is not right. I had a meeting yesterday with the Outpouring Ministry pastors, Bishop Harvey. We met, and we didn't do any official business. We just came together, went out and ate in fellowship, and just started to pour into each other. And one of the pastors said, listen, I need y'all to pray for me because I'm in a season in my church where a lot of people are struggling with mental illness. And I said, whoa. And the first thing came back to my mind, I remember I was at a service years ago, and Bishop Hines was preaching. And he said, from a statistic standpoint, he says every 1 out of 5 people struggle with mental illness. So he said, if you got more than 5 people on your row, one of them is crazy. Amen. And then, so we sat down and we began to talk. And Pastor C, that's his background. He actually, before he moved in from Nashville, he had the job of going out diagnosing people and helping them get into mental, health institutions and helping them. So he began to give us the different diagnostic traits for different categories of mental illness. And he started talking about being, bipolar and schizophrenia and depression. Right. And while he was talking, I looked at Bishop Harvey, I said, Dad, the people need to be taught about this kind of stuff. Yes, because a lot of us, and I'm talking about prosperity, but I'm also talking about, watch this, lack in your life. A lot of us, unknowingly, because we're not educated about it, you're suffering from depression and don't even know it. Amen. I wish y'all, come on now. Come on, don't feel bad, because part of the prosperity or you becoming whole or rich in that area is first acknowledging that I have an issue. And there's a lot going on in today's society, in this generation, that presses upon you to have issues with depression. You're going through. And he began to talk about, watch this, he says, I said, explain to me what happens to a person that suffers from schizophrenia or being bipolar. He says it all goes back to a traumatic event in their life, and it alters the chemical makeup in their brain, and it alters their brain. My cousin back there shaking her head, so she knows what I'm talking about. She has a little education behind her. And so he says, all it takes is a traumatic event to happen, and then he said it's natural and spiritual. It alters the chemical makeup in their brain, and then spiritually it gives an entranceway to different spirits. Remember the demonic boy in the Bible? And he said, you can't counsel it out. He said, you can't counsel that out. He said, you can pray it out and cast it out, but the person has to understand what they have and want it out before you can cast it out. That's real. And so I said, Dad, listen. I said, I'm gonna ask a question. I hope you grant me permission. I said, because I've been in situations where I've tried to counsel people, but because of lack of education, I couldn't discern what mental illness I was dealing with. Amen. Amen. Don't get offended. I know when we were in school, people used to say, we would tease each other. We say, you mentally retarded. But being retarded just means you're behind a little bit. Y'all work with me this morning. And so here it is. I said, our next outpouring business meeting, let's turn that into a training for the leaders. And let Dr. Pastor C teach us on the aspects, because you can't cast something out that you don't understand. Amen. You can't pray an issue out if you don't understand. And watch this, we got a lot of issues to be depressed about. Amen. Am I talking to a real church today? Amen. And watch what he says. He says, this is deep. This is deep. And this is going to bless some of y'all. I hope y'all receive it, because I did when he said it to me. He said the foundational platform for depression is rage. He said the foundation, he said when you have people that have moments where they go in rages, he said that's a number one sign that they're suffering with depression. I said, wow. And he said, you'll be talking, they be good today and isolated the next day. Am I talking to somebody in this church today? And here we are, come on, let's stay in the scripture. We're talking about the life that Jesus provided us, which is abundant, prosperous living, but we're saved, but we're challenged, because stress is a killer. And so we have a lot of illnesses in our physical body, but we have a lot of illness too in our soulish man, our mind, our will, and our emotions. And John is telling Gaius that if your soul is not prospering, you really can't prosper as a person. If your mind is not right, it will block the spiritual flow in your life. We're going somewhere today. So he says, beloved, I wish and I pray that you prosper in all things and be in health even as your soul prospers. We've been churching over stuff a long time, you all. Just like we had the little praise moment in here when we first got here. We're praising over stuff, we're shouting over stuff, but we're going home broke and defeated. Things are still conquering us, but we have a relationship with the Lord. And what's happening here, the church has not graduated from being a religious institution. We're so religious that we forgot about relationship. And because we don't have relationship, we're sick. We have issues. Come on, watch this now. Let me do this disclaimer. All the answers that we need are in the Word. They right there. But if your mind can't accept it, you can't be delivered and healed from it.